fine, beautiful blue diamond. Let's take a look at this JK. Obviously it has 40s, 1-tons, unlocking hubs, bead locks. Unlocking hubs are really big because they basically disconnect the wheels from the axle, and by doing that we're not spinning the gears up and we're not spinning the front drive shaft, which then spins the transfer case up and builds heat. So you can get a little bit of economy and better steering by going to unlocking hubs. We have metal cloak fenders. Of course, we've got our steel bumper, fog lights, LED light down here, sunk winch, which is good. You can see the LT4 intercooler, LED lights. Here's the game changer variable rate springs, which I think work great. These 6-pack shocks are going back to metal cloak to get revalved. One of the issues with this Jeep is you can see how tall it is and it gets roly-poly. So Scott over at Metal Cloak has a custom valving for the Metal Cloak 6-packs that when it rolls to one side, he stiffens the up dampening so that it doesn't tend to just roll back to the other side, and he says it flattens it out. So we're going to give that a shot in this one, and we actually did it with a LT1 build recently. We currently don't have the fender liners in. You can see that there's a lot of heat tape and everything because this is a relatively large engine in a small engine compartment. Interesting antenna. There's some stuff mounted here. I don't remember what it was. We got a camper up here that I hear folds out to a bedroom. Of course, we couldn't leave the light bar out. We've got Metal Cloak rock rails coming around the back. You can see our Dana 80. And by the way, we did have to bend that track bar because the Dynatrac 80 is a large axle and it has a large cast cover. So we had to custom bend and readjust that track bar. We got our Metal Cloak tire carrier, high lift jack, LED lights, lots and lots of stuff on this. But I'll tell you, the LT4 pulls it like it's a go-kart. Here we are up on the mountain with this LT4 JK. You'll notice that the customer removed the roof rack. It does drive a lot better. It's pretty hot out. This is a black JK. You can see we got a lot of coolers up here. We got a oil cooler over here and a trans cooler over there. Let's take a quick look under the hood. This front cooler is an intercooler. The one behind it is the AC condenser, and the one behind that is the radiator. So you can see how much the cooling air has to go through to get to the cooling fan, and that's why it's so important to leave this unobstructed. So here's under the hood with the LT4. You can see it's just ticking over about 450 RPM. Even though this has an 8-speed in it, you'll notice we have a transmission dipstick tube. That little green cap underneath the dipstick is the breather for the transfer case and the transmission. This is some kind of Bluetooth switch panel deal. Here's our coolant reservoir, and we have increased the capacity of this reservoir. It's pretty tall. This customer is running the stock power steering system. He's got the stock reservoir and no RAM, as you can see, and I'll tell you, it actually steers pretty good. Even with these big 40s, I haven't been having any issues. Now, I haven't crawled any rocks, but it's been working pretty good so far. You will notice even on the back of this LT4, I can get my hand, my full hand, behind that intake and back along the tunnel, so we got plenty of room. We got plenty of room on both sides. While this engine does fill up this engine bay, I will say that it does look quite compact in here. It doesn't look like it's much more of an engine than the Pentastar size-wise, but as we all know, it has a tremendous amount more horsepower. So we're going to continue up the trail. It's close to 100 degrees out right now, and here's some of the information we're looking at. Our intake air temp's running about 115 to 120, trans temp 183. I'm not seeing a whole lot of knock retard in this Jeep. We are monitoring our catalytic converter temperatures. We don't want to see those go too high. Notice our coolant temp and oil temp are pretty close. Now we do have the air conditioning on, and we're running about 100 to 120 psi, which is actually really good considering this is a heavy JK and we have the AC condenser blocked with a intercooler. But the AC is really cold, so it's working as intended. We're checking the pressure or the vacuum in the fuel tank, and you can see there we're reading it in PA. The LT4 is really an awesome engine, guys. If you're looking for an engine where you can push over 700 horsepower, but drive it like a stalker grocery getter, then the LT4 might be for you. I'm not really sure how many of you guys really need over 600 horsepower. And again, because of the power delivery of this LT4 and the other LTs, I think they're underrated in horsepower. I think this performs closer to a 700 or 750 horsepower engine because of the direct injection and the low end torque and all that. I think the LT1 is an awesome engine. The LT1 is basically the same engine as this without the blower on top. The LT4 probably has some beefed up internal parts for the additional horsepower, but essentially they're the same architecture. I don't know anybody that's not happy with an LT1 and an 8 or a 10 speed. They're just phenomenal powertrains, and the LT4 just adds more power on top of that. As time goes by, we need to integrate this technology into our engine conversions. If we don't, one, we're missing out on this technology, which is giving us more horsepower, better economy, lower emissions, and on top of that is all the legal issues. I'm seeing all sorts of conversions out there. I get guys calling me all the time wanting to put in small blocks or Gen 3s in their 2016 JK, and that's just nuts. In my opinion, putting an LS3 in a JL is nuts. All right, let's look at a little more data here. You'll notice on the top left I have misfires on cylinder number 8. I tend to choose cylinder number 8 because it's all the way in the back. It usually runs the hottest, and if there's going to be a problem, it's going to start there. Our fuel trims have been running plus or minus 5%, so that's really good. You can see our O2s are switching. I do find that this app does make the O2s look a little more scratchy than they really are. If you looked at it on a really fast scanner, they'd be cleaner, but this app has to transfer a lot of information over Bluetooth. You can see that our rear O2s are basically flatlined because the rear O2s are monitoring the performance of the converters to clean up some of the bad gases, and you can see now we're in deceleration fuel cutoff as we come to a stop. Now we are in 14.7 to 1, which is closed loop, and when you get on it hard, you're going to go into an open loop mode called performance enrichment, and you're going to see that number drop. It could drop to 12 to 1, 11 to 1. Let's just get up to speed right now with this LT4, and it's just so effortless.